Hello and welcome to another episode of Cardiff Central. As always, I'm Harley in the hot seat, and I am joined by both Carwyn and Dan this week. So, how are you both doing, gents?
Yeah, not bad, mate. Not bad at all.
Yeah, all good tap.
Excellent stuff. Good bank holidays.
I was
No.
putting up DIY all weekend, so no, in short,
That sounds
I
like a
was
great. That sounds like a great weekend.
I was cursing whoever the Amazon gods were, or whatever we got the cabinet from, because they didn't explain how to set up a latch and a hinge, and I didn't have a flipping clue, and did the instructions the wrong way around. So spent the whole time trying to unscrew when I should have been screwing, and then unscrew and then screwing when I should have been unscrewing. That was annoying. Yeah, there we go. I said to you just before we started, I wanted to rant about something. There we go.
If nothing else, I know how to push people's buttons. Uh, what about you, Dan?
Just pottering in the garden for me, living my early midlife crisis, which is quite fun.
Yeah, I'm very much the same. I've recently got into barbecuing and smoking, so as in smoking meat as opposed to cigarettes. And yeah, so did beer can chicken on the weekend. Oh, so good. Uh,
I can see
anyway,
Harley with a
lot.
purple vape. Like,
I feel like I'd give the Ben Affleck on the balcony energy, to be honest. Anyway, right. So we've got quite a fair bit of news to get through. So Cardiff have done a load of business this week and last week. So we have re-signed Harry Millard. We've also got fresh signings in Danny Southworth, Ed Byrne, Joe Cowell. And in the coaching department, we've also brought in Johnny Goodridge. I can't read my own handwriting, but a name I should already know. So, what do you make? What do you make of the business so far?
the one I know best is Burn, to be honest. Very solid player. I can never remember. He was at Bristol as well, wasn't he? We both were at Bristol together, were they? And then 'cause he's got a brother, hasn't he, that also plays. I made this up completely. Pretty sure he has. And he, yeah, yeah, he's a very solid player. He's not going to blow the houses down. But in terms of having a player that's going to be there pretty much all season, very consistent. I really rate it. I think it's a really good piece of business. I think he's a good scrummager, decent around the park, and is going to, yeah, he plays a good understudy to Domachowski when Domachowski's away with Wales and or unavailable because of injury.
Absolutely. Yeah. Dan?
Yeah, he wasn't at Bristol. Just Brian at Bristol. Ed must have visited. Yeah, don't dispute. It's always a really good pickup. And you don't play 100 times for Leinster unless you're all right. So
And 6 island caps, which let's
yeah,
be fair, it's very hard to break into loose head if you're
I
not
don't know. I
talking
almost feel
English.
like playing 100 times for Leinster is harder than breaking into the island squad at some point. But yeah, I think what Jockey said as well about experience and leadership and bringing sort of a bit of that Leinster culture into Cardiff is important as well. Don't know a huge amount about Danny Southworth. Had a little look at his highlights yesterday. Just on sort of pure numbers on paper, 6 foot, 18 stone, converted number 8, 25. I mean, if that could be a Reece Carey sort of clone, really. I suppose as a big ball carrying, massive prop. So numbers wise, great. I think just from the few clips I saw, quite raw still. I think is 25, but is probably a bit younger in rugby terms, hasn't played a huge amount. So they'll probably work him hard with Mellon and Bubba and the new South African forwards coach whose name I can never remember in pre-season and see how they go. But he's got 2 guys to learn from there in Dommer and Byrne coming in, which isn't a bad school to learn from, and coming from Exeter, which like Leinster is pretty good environment and culture there. So yeah, don't mind that at all. And then Millard's solid signing, won't have cost much as a winger available all season. Just hope that knee injury wasn't bad because it looked painful as against Edinburgh. Just the way it's like he got caught as he was kicking it, and his knee bounced in all sorts of random directions. So obviously, I think he's done knee ligaments once last season as well, isn't he? He's only not long back from that. So fingers crossed that's not too serious, but decent business. Oh, don't know anything about Johnny Goodridge, by the way. CV looks all right. Worked with Jockey before. So as a skills assistant attack coach position, seems pretty solid.
And the two things that stood out for me is one, as I said, did you point out he's worked with Jockey before, so there's a bit of familiarity, so that's all. But that always does help with the coach. But also, he's been quite close ties with Clifton College and the other one, Christchurch, I think.
He was at Christ
whatever.
College, Brecon.
So
He's
maybe
come from Hartpury as well.
yeah. So having some contact, he's probably got a few contacts there. He might be able to give us some time, and it also helps with the club's plans to sort of work with these institutions in England to sort of lend talent out there, but still retain them on our books.
Mm.
So I mean that's sensible. So not officially, but basically, the club have sort of confirmed without officially confirming that Thomas Young, Ben Thomas, Seb Davis are all still on the books. Definitely got they've got more seasons. Unfortunately, Thomas Young out for the rest, which I do believe we did cover last week, but I can't remember. But either way, big loss. He's been very good for us this season, as he has since he's come over the seven. So yeah, I can't think. I believe the only other thing in terms of squad is Shane Lewis, who's going a little bit further east.
Yeah, we are just discussing it off pod that I'm pretty sure we had a chat about it before that was a possibility. On paper it makes sense. I know Di Flanagan particularly likes a 6 that is good in the line out and does that job really well, and I know Shane Lewis Hughes wants to play a lot more 6, so on paper it really does make sense. And he's not getting the game time at 6 at Cardiff, so where can he get game time? So yeah, on paper it makes sense. Will he get the game time he hopes with someone like Woodman coming through? I don't know. Depends. And I know this is possibly going to sound harsh, and maybe shit. I think apart from Harley cutting me off because apparently I'd hard to take it too long. In short,
No.
it seems like a good deal all around. It seems to make sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything you want to add to any of that, Dan?
No, it was like listening to what Carwyn said about Owen Lane last week. It's sort of a similar-ish thing with Shane Lewis Hughes, really, about whether he reached his potential. He was very good in that. What would it have been, sort of 1920 season just before COVID, and then he comes back and makes a mark in the Autumn Nations Cup of 2020 when it was all behind closed doors, and then since then he picked up an injury Feb time, and he's never. It's hard to say about potential because do you have more potential than you actually reach, or if as good as you reach is as good as you're ever going to get? But I think if he'd not got injured just after that Wales call up and had kicked on and played a bit more Test rugby, you kind of do half wonder where he would have got to. But when he came back from injury, Josh Turnbull was undroppable pretty much at 6 for us, and he's not. The problem Shane's got is if he's not starting at 6. I know he's played a bit of second row for us, but he's not an obviously versatile enough guy to stick on the bench at sort of 20 in the 20 jersey, because if you lose your 7, he's not going to slot in there. And second row is needs must for us. I don't think you actually sign him as an obvious 4-6. So ideal world with proper budgets, we keep Lane and Lewis Hughes and have a proper squad that's competitive. But we're not in ideal world, so I think it's the right decision.
Yeah, I think you just touching on that thing on his ceiling and things like that. When he came into the squad, I'll take a lot of what Pivac said in the press with a pinch of salt, but he did used to compare him to Alwyn Jones in terms of work ethic and driving standards in training. And what 100% when he got this opportunity in a Wales shirt, he never let Wales down. I laughed when Dan mentioned the Autumn Nations Cup because I'd managed to scrub that name from my brain, to be fair, because it was such a horrible time. But in fairness, I think Shane was one of the bright sparks of that team, along with another player who hasn't really perhaps seen his full potential in a Wales jersey in Jim Botham. You think of both, the pair of them started against England, wasn't it, in that competition? And yes, there's all sorts of competition in the Wales back row, but they were 21-year-olds or 22-year-olds at the time, and you're thinking, hello, these guys could be in 2 or 3 years' time when Tips is perhaps moving on as he has now, or perhaps then a couple of other players moving on as well, and Josh Navidi and things like that. Maybe they were going to be the next cow off the rank, but it hasn't worked out in that sense, partly due to injuries, partly due to competition for places and selections and coaches and all sorts. But yeah, and I'm sure he's hoping that this is an opportunity to reinvigorate his career. And the way the Dragons have gone about business in the last couple of days, it looks a bit more positive than it has previously. So fingers crossed that it does so for his career.
It does leave Cardiff potentially a bit short, though, in the back five forwards. Now, I know Jockey said this week that they're still working on recruiting and it's all a bit up in the air, but I think for the first time in a long time, you look at our back row stocks and we've got good players there still. Like, both of them, a man are your sixes with Donnell, Mackenzie Martin and Falatau at 8, but then you've only really got Thomas Young at 7 if you're classing both of them more as a 6-8. So and then into the second row, they confirmed today that Seb's still there. We're pretty sure that Teddy's contracted. Not really sure about Thornton. I'm pretty sure he is out of contract, but whether they've offered him a new deal or not remains to be seen. But across that, particularly second row and 7, then I think we are probably lacking ideally 3, maybe 2 players there. We definitely need to look into bringing in a lock and possibly an out-and-out 7. I think both of them and Delarue can play there, but in terms of senior fetcher, Young's your only real option there. And obviously we know how attritional it is as he departed with one working arm the other week. So.
Yeah, it's another reason I'm laughing again, Dan, is because I saw a tweet that I think you put out earlier in the week when Dan Edwards from Bristol.
Dan Thomas.
Dan Thomas? Why do I want to call him Dan Edwards? Dan Edwards is a natural fetcher.
Player.
Interesting. Yeah. Dan Thomas.
Take him as well. just to really piss off James.
Sorry, Dan Thomas, the Bristol 7, who, fair play to him. We're talking about a guy who a couple of seasons ago, a lot of people were saying maybe should be in the Wales squad the way he was performing for Bristol and was performing lights out, to be fair. Him and Thomas Young were probably the 2 of the best 7s in the English Prem at the time. You said something like, Cardiff need a natural 7. And I just remember thinking, the heck? Oh, yeah, we do.
Yeah, it's weird to say. We should have loads.
Yeah, I was still thinking, no, but we got Ollie Robinson. We've got. It's like reeling them off in my brain. I thought, no, he's gone. He's gone. It's bonkers. The interesting one is Delarue, you mentioned there. I know, having had a brief chat with him after Wales Italy, he sees himself as a 7. Which is interesting, as you say, because I think, like you, he's doesn't seem a natural fetcher. I thought it worked really well, the balance of that back row with Bedell and Morgan Morse against Italy. That the back row balance worked really well with Delarue doing some of the hard grunt work until the tackles around the legs, and Bedell getting in over the ball. Funnily enough, he ran past me the other day. He must live around here somewhere. But I do think. I do see him as a bit more of a Botham-esque figure, which is someone who seems more comfortable in a 6, hard-working 6 role, similar to Shane, but in a slightly different mold. Again, it's more of a hard-working 6 as opposed to a line-out option 6 plus the hard work that Shane Lewis brings. But it'd be interesting to see what they see with Delarue next season, if they see him as a 7 or as 6, or probably not an 8, but perhaps.
Yeah, and the only other name to mention is William Bradley is still technically employed by Cardiff, but I don't know if we want to start a hashtag Where's Gwilym. It's been 18 months odd now, I think, since he played. They don't even include him in sort of injury updates when they do them occasionally now. So it looked great when he was playing and for the Rags and breaking into the first team a little bit, but you worry that losing this much time at this stage of your career is a bit of a killer, really.
I mean, considering we've just been talking about how it seems to have affected Lane and Shane Lewis Hughes and various other players, like Compier as well, actually, over at the Dragons. It's a bit of a shame. Anyone from the Rags you think might be able to step up 7-wise, or?
I just think, there's some good players in there. the Hud brothers have been really good this year for the Rags, and Shaw more consistently good in the second row. But I just think, unfortunately for those guys, the gap is so big now, particularly for forwards, the sort of S&C jump. In an ideal world, you'd sign them on and give them sort of 6 months of just gym work and see where they are. But we don't have the luxury of signing players to go in the gym for 6 months and give them a go. So no, I don't really think so. Unfortunately, the gap is the reason the EDC is coming in is because that gap is just too big for those sort of guys.
Is one player just jumped to my head just because we're literally just talking about him now. Bedell. I'd be interested. The way he played against Wales, Italy.
Yeah, I can't
20s.
I can't see Leicester letting him go in a hurry, to be honest. I think they've signed him up pretty long term there. They've made a pretty substantial financial investment in him when signing him.
I don't know if you could get him on loan or something. Even that would be interesting.
Yeah, I suppose he's been playing for, I want to say he's been playing for Hartbury in the Championship quite a bit. I don't know if he's going there as well as playing for Leicester, or if they just loaned him out to the Championship team. But yeah,
that's not normally a Leicester feeder.
Yeah, no, I don't really know where they go.
It's normally someone like Nottingham, isn't it, for Leicester?
Yeah, I don't know where they usually, but it's definitely, I'm pretty 99% sure it's been Hartbury he's been playing for.
Anyway, sign Will Boyd back is my solution to that problem. Everything will be better if we get Will Boyd back.
He's just a Twitter celebrity these days. I see him replying to all the Scarlets tweets, slagging him off, basically, as his new full-time job.
And all the more reason to bring him back. I don't know. I mean, Osprey seem to have an unusually high number of sevens. Maybe we nick one of theirs. Jack Morgan looks pretty handy. I'm so gonna get some angry WhatsApp messages in the morning. Last bit of news. Moving on to the women's game. So they have announced the women's under-20 Six Nations Summer Series. So a bit similar to how the men's under-20 Summer Series worked last year. So you play 3 rounds in July. So on the 4th of July, Wales women under-20 will be playing France. Then England following a few days later on the 9th. And then on the 14th, they'll be playing the host Italy, as this will be based in Parma. Which, do you know what? Sounds like a really lovely couple of weekends. If I could get the time off work, I'd be tempted to go. 2 weeks in Parma. Gentlemen, thoughts on it? Good for development. I think one of you pointed out that actually they're allowed 3 non-under-20s jokers, which seems a bit odd.
Yeah, well, that was you, Dan, wasn't it, that pointed it out, and then I started ranting about it, and I said it reminds me a lot of the Olympics and GB football team getting to have 3 over 23s, if anyone remembers that. But yeah, I why is my main question. I don't quite get why.
Just to clarify, this is the over 20s bit, not the series.
Yeah,
itself.
sorry. The idea of an over 20 under 20s summer series is brilliant. I've got no issues with that at all. I just don't quite get why you'd have 3 jokers in there. Yeah, that's as simple as that. I just don't quite get what it does for development and things like that. Because what do? Do you bring in 21-year-olds, 22-year-olds in terms of props, perhaps, that could do with it in terms of their development years? Then I kind of understand it. But if you're talking about, a 28-year-old fullback, why? It sort of depends who you bring in. I think if it's used for a front row of 20 to 24-year-olds who are still developing in the game, I get it. But if it's for something else, I don't quite understand the thought process. But that's my main rant on that one. I don't know if Dan feels the same or similarly or differently.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that. I don't. Yeah, I can't think of a logical reason to include that off the top of my head, other than they don't think there's enough under-20s players or something. But yeah, it doesn't really make sense. Just from a Wales point of view, I just hope that the WRU resource it properly and sort of put the effort into it, and like obviously we've got the under-18 regional competition, which seems to go all right, but can they expand that? Can they put a bit more resource into that so that we're properly feeding into this under-20s then, and make sure these girls are playing properly from when they leave that under-18s, and they're not getting lost in a hole. Obviously, the Celtic Challenge you guys discussed last week will help with that, but I think there's still a risk that your 19, 20-year-olds don't play quite enough aside from this to properly develop by the time they're sort of 21, 22 to be stepping up to senior professional women's rugby and Six Nations and stuff. So as long as it's part of the WRU's hopeful wider strategy to develop the pathway, then it'd be great for Wales. But I can foresee an unfortunate circumstance where WRU sort of think, oh, that's great, they've done that for us, we'll just send a team off, and they get hammered and it doesn't really matter then, and it probably ends up harming us more than anything. So.
Yeah, that's happened too many times in the past, hasn't it? Let's be honest about it. Just to correct my own rant, it is 3 under-23s players. So it makes a little bit more. So yeah, especially if you're talking front rowers, front five, it makes a bit more sense. But yeah, at least we're not having. and with all due respect to Charlotte Harries, I did have a small feeling we might have Charlotte Harries joining, like a Craig Bellamy or Ryan Giggs, sort of join the ranks. But yeah, it does make sense a bit more.
The only problem though then is if you get like a 22, 23-year-old prop going up against an 18-year-old or 17, because actually some of these under-20s do have 17-year-olds, that could cause equal problems. But I think as long as it's used wisely, maybe it's just maybe there are a couple of players who've been a bit injured, maybe not. And if they sort of say, oh, they can't have senior appearances or something, that might be a good extra caveat on it. Yeah. So
I was just looking at the England women's squad. Sorry, quickly. Maud Muir's 22. She could play in it.
This is where you've got to be. Like Cecilia Tuipulotu is only 20.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, maybe that's what we should do. Great idea. We're winning it. We're winning the whole thing.
Just literally just field her. Don't even need to bother with the other 22 jerseys.
She's going at 12 as well.
I just love to see her have one game at 12. Just be wonderful. And then might get a try scored by a back then.
After a chat with Jockey the other week about like loving a ball playing 12, I've now got an image of him having to pick Cecilia Tuipulotu at 12 and just go, for fuck's sake, every week. Just looking at it, thinking, I want a ball playing. Yeah, but there's this amazing, like, physical beast of a 12 we can pick. Yeah, but I don't want it.
To be fair, I think she could do a job for Cardiff. If you want any more Wales rugby chat, just a quick plug for one of the other pods. So we're going to do a special bonus wrap episode tomorrow night. So me, Catboy Hugh Griffin, and Julia, who's basically big on women's rugby. We can just do a quick review of Wales Six Nations as a whole. Go through. Basically, it's probably going to end up me saying the same rant I said on here last week, but with less praise of Rachel Malcolm. And moving on, so one game for Cardiff interest this weekend. That was the Premiership semi-final, but for the Rags up against Llandovery. Dan, you watched this. I was barbecuing. I meant to watch it. Which is why I'm terrible at this, and we had to get someone of Dan's expertise in to cover the Rags to help Carwyn, so it's not all him.
Yeah, Rags. I can't actually. Was it 34-13? I think the final score, something along those lines. The scoreline actually, I think, flatters Llandovery a little bit. I thought the Rags played quite well. They managed the first part of the game really well, picked up a bit of a pointless yellow card, which probably should have been a red. I don't really know what Aaron Pinches was doing, but he definitely throws a punch. But I don't think the TMO picked it up quite on the screen. It was literally a case of the referee walks over to the side and looks at a tiny monitor like VAR, but worse. But yeah, so they managed the yellow card period really well. Score, good try. Morgan Allen gets over from close range. And then Llandovery have just got this ability to turn it on. I mean, they are so good for a semi-professional outfit. The sort of accuracy of their attack, their clinical edge, how they turn decent attacking opportunities into tries so regularly, and They just they scored twice in 5 minutes, and then Max Page scored an absolute perler from the wing, and it just took the game away from us. But we were in it. We were in it for long periods. We defended really well, actually. Set piece was really good. It just didn't quite have that attacking edge that they did to turn a couple of half decent breaks into tries. I'd love for the Rags to develop a pick and go game around the red zone, because flipping it, we flick this ball away from the base at 9, and I have a heart attack every time because we never look like we're going to catch it, or we're never really set properly to latch and drive. And we've got some really good players who could just pick and go. I mean, I back Morgan Allen from anywhere sort of inside 35 meters to pick and go and get over. It was a decent finish to what's become a decent season for the Rags. I don't know if it was yourself, Carwyn, who wrote the preview for Sporting Wales on the website last week, but Griff Rees mentioned in that just sort of what a tough old season it's been. They didn't know if they had a squad at the start of the season, and then I did some stats today for the piece, and they've used 68 players this season, the Rags, but only had 25 contracted semi-professionals in the squad. So you've got sort of 40 odd players there just dipping it. There's been 10 first teamers, but none of them have really, I mean, Willis Halaholu's on that list as somebody who played one game. So they've dipped in and out a bit. There hasn't been many academy players because there's not really a senior academy this season. There's sort of Cam, Tyler Grocott, and Lucas De La Rua and Adam Williams, and that's about it really. And then I think it's 25 permit players they've had to use. They've used Cardiff Uni, Cardiff Met, Swansea Uni, Ponty and Merthyr both had players in the 23 on the weekend. And we had loads of lads from like St. Peter's and St. Joe's coming in as well from, like local Cardiff teams, which is a bit of a step up for those guys. So, just getting the team out on the pitch regularly has been a success. So to finish 4th and to push Llandovery all the way in the semi-finals, a really good achievement, I think. And it leaves the squad actually quite well set for next season in the EDC. You've got a good core of young semi-professionals there. You can go through sort of Sean Moore, the Hud brothers, into Joe Williams at 9. Luke Pollock's been really good at outside centre. Derry Cross and Joe Goodchild in the back 3. And then what will be a much better senior academy next season with obviously Harry Wild be a bit more available. And then we've got players coming in. Joe Cowell, mentioned earlier, is coming in as a tight head from Cardiff Met. And a bunch of the 7 or 8 lads who we announced are going to be senior academy members a few weeks ago from our under 18s. Tom Bowen and Stefan Manuel coming back. Ollie Das from the Welsh Exiles programme from Hurstpierpoint College looks quite a handy winger / fullback. So the squad should be in quite a nice position next season to kick on and be a little bit more reminiscent of the sort of 2018, 19, 2021, 22 successful rag squads that won Welsh Cups and Welsh Premierships.
Yeah. Basically, echoing what Dan said, and I'd probably go a bit stronger and say I think Cardiff, from where they were pre-season, start of the season over summer, I think they've overachieved. And I think that's almost bizarre to say when you think Cardiff have reached the finals season on season or been there and thereabouts, cup finals, wins. Last season, obviously, lost out to Llandovery in the final last year. But I think you looked at the start of the season, Ponty were going well, Pontypool were going well.
Aberavon started, yeah.
Pardon, sorry?
I was going to say Aberavon started really well before falling off as well. So.
Yeah, exactly. So you were looking at those teams and you're thinking, okay, it's going to be a bit of a bum fight really for 4th. And I think I use that term pretty much every week for about 3 months on this pod. But I think the situation that they've managed to get themselves into the playoffs semis and not been blown away by a very strong Llandovery side, including some really experienced players, some players that obviously on some of those playing professional rugby last season. For instance, think of your Taylor Davises, you think of a couple of other lads there, and then you've got really good academy prospects like Max Page, who I think a couple of the Scarlets boys are already losing their shit about, which is going to be interesting going forward. And rightly so, he looks a good prospect. But I think, that interview that I did with Griff Rees was quite eye-opening when he said like, I didn't know if we were going to have a squad at the start of the season, and he was just quite open about that. He's just like, I didn't know where we were going to get players from, and I remember chatting to him end of last season about it and saying, what is the prospect? And if you turned around to him and said, end of last season, what do you want to see? What do you want to see happen with these players? And you've ended up with 4 players that were in the Rags team last year in Wales shirts. You've then got people like De La Rua playing against Toulouse in the Champions Cup. I think he would be really glad to see that happening. But that also does reflect, as you said, the situation that they had pre-season, situation they've had during the season, where they've had to find players because that level of 20 to 24-year-olds they normally go to, they're not there. So they've had to go elsewhere. They've had to use Cardiff Met. They've had to use local clubs. So I really do think they've overachieved this season. I think it's a really good achievement to reach 4th and not be blown away as well in the semi-final against a very good Llandovery side that are going to finish 2nd in the final. I'm going to put my hand out on the limb, but that Newport side looked tasty as hell.
Just a word as well for Llandovery captain Jack Jones. Really nasty looking neck injury late in the game. Totally innocuous, no malice in it. It's always just carried into contact and sort of the top of his head's like compressed into his spine pretty much. A real shame that he won't lead them out next weekend as well, because he's been a great player for them in the second row, but best wishes to him.
Yeah, absolutely. And Calvin alluded to it. So Brewers will be playing Newport in the final.
Just a natural reaction.
Yeah, so what's looked like it should be a good game. I believe it's on S4C.
Yeah, probably will be.
Yeah. Do you guys have? I can't read my notes. So I can't remember what I've written down for the kickoff time. Is it 3 o'clock again?
They were 5:15 both last week, which is quite an S4C sport time slot on a Saturday evening.
Yeah,
so.
it might be. I guess probably for.
Even weirder. Per BBC Sport, which has been wrong before, 20 to 3.
Ugh. 20 to 3. Police must have moved it earlier, expecting fan trouble. Must be fighting in the streets of Llandovery.
Fighting the tractors coming down.
Please allow extra time for feeding your sheep.
God, that sounds bad, doesn't it? No, I gotta say, I only see that going one way. I really do. I think Newport are on such an upward trajectory. Llandovery would have to batter Newport up front to get the win, and they can do that. I'm not saying they can't, but the way Newport are playing out the back and everything else around Matt O'Brien, who will be available, he's assured me. It's going to be bonkers. I think they should win that, and I'm not going to say comfortably, but I don't think it'll be a one or 2 point game. I think it could be a 1 score game, but maybe 6 or 7 points.
I said on that we did do predictions of this game. If you two want to throw them out, feel free, but I won't press you for them. Nope.
What, for the final?
Yeah.
I can't predict a Newport win. I physically can't do it. So I'll have to say Llandovery by 50.
I've gone very strong the other way, so there we go. There's your balance. Who said this couldn't be on the BBC?
All right, so moving on to the senior side then. So Cardiff Rugby start their summer tour, their South African tour. I suppose it's given the weather the last couple of days, it's basically a summer. So we'll be playing against the Lions up at Ellis Park. Difficult place to go. Munster did manage to beat them. I'm personally not so confident. What do you guys think?
I'm trying to work out if it's the worst time to play the South African sides or the best time. Because you look at Scarlets going down there at the start of the season, that sort of derailed their season. Likewise, Dragons' season, I would argue, had already been derailed by not winning 4 of their first 5 at home, whatever it was. But playing them at this point of the season, I just get to the stage where you just go, do you really? What's the point? I know that sounds really horrible to say, but I do feel a little bit like that. At the end of the day, you're going down to South Africa. They've all got a lot more to play for. So they're going to play first teams. Lions, Lions are fighting for top 8. They should get there. I personally don't see. I'd like to say a couple of points. I'd like to say a try bonus point or something, but I don't see much more than that. But I said the same thing about the Ospreys when the Ospreys went down there, so you never know. But I do see it as a case of, yes, Cardiff have nothing to lose, but the other teams have a lot more to gain. So I think it's one of those situations where they're going down to South Africa in that situation.
Yeah, I think from a squad point of view, it's probably quite a nice time to go in terms of just 2 weeks as a group together, have a few beers out there. I'm sure it'd be relatively relaxed. I can't imagine there'll be too over the top. I don't think they've actually gone yet, as far as I'm aware. I don't know when they plan to travel out, but it seems like they've been in Cardiff at the start of this week, so they're obviously not too fussed about getting out there too early. To be honest, until you said we were playing the Lions, I'd forgotten who we were playing. I knew we were in South Africa, but I didn't know which South African we were playing. So I thought, oh, I'll have a look at the league table. They're one place ahead of us, but 14 points ahead of us. How does that happen? No, we're in just our own league in the bottom 5 here, which I'll claim we're top of. But the other thing, the other thing that strikes me about the Lions is that they've got a plus 89 points difference.
Yeah,
Which is mad for the 11th. That's the 5th best points difference, but they're 11th. They scored 424 points, which is mad as well. So defense could take a battering on the weekend. It might be quite a high scoring game, to say the least. I guess we try and score 4 tries as well and see how it goes.
Yeah, so plus 89 points, plus 13 tries.
What a stupid stat line that is.
I had a
So
look at it.
they average 3.7 tries a game. We average 2.7. And that is quite heavily inflated by the Boxing Day game.
Yeah, that's true.
I had a look at it a few weeks ago. Isn't it something like, they hammered Connacht away from home, which was an amazing result. But bar that, they hammered Dragons who went out there, didn't they? Despite having a red card early doors. They've hammered Zebra. They've basically they've hammered the size they should have hammered, and the other size they've not lost by much. So that's where they've got the plus 89 points difference or whatever it's for. Like I think that game is a write-off, and it's about just not getting beasted, because I think, like, having said that, the other teams have got a lot more to play for. Sharks, obviously, all they've got to play for really is for it to be a tune-up for the week after, isn't it? So
well, yeah, I assume they rest players for our game.
Yeah,
that's what I'm wondering is, do they send them out earlier? Do they think, oh, we'll send some of our top boys up to London early? If they come back, I don't know. I don't know if they think, oh, they've been here 3 weeks and need to come back for a couple of weeks.
Maybe.
Because I said they don't really have much to play for. I mean, the best they can do is take our spot of 12th.
Our top of the league, our top of the bottom league spot.
we're top of the bottoms.
that is your title.
Top of the bottom. There you go. At least that's one thing for us to not have to think about later. Yeah, I think I give you your point about not flying out. I know they do say that because it would be an altitude. They either say get there a week before,
is it an altitude?
or I can never remember or go the day before.
I can never remember which South African teams are altitude. Is this the big altitude one, the Lions one?
I think the Lions and the Bulls are about a par, but I think Pretoria's marginally.
Which one's the one that tells you how high up it is on the way? There's one that's the Bulls, is it?
The Bulls are the one that tells you it's massive, but I think Ellis Park is still fairly high. I think those two in Bloemfontein for the Cheetahs are all quite high up, and then Cape Town and Durban are pretty much sea level.
Is it Ellis Park we're playing at?
Yeah, Ellis Park.
1,724 meters, 82% oxygen. Sounds fun.
It sounds a lot when you say it like that, doesn't it? 82%. Well, that sounds fine, but it's easy.
It's 82% of normal.
So
bear in mind, if your blood stats drop below 95, they call the doctor normally.
No, yeah, I hadn't realised that was the case either. Yeah, maybe we just don't go on Saturday. Maybe we just don't turn
Yeah,
up and see what
forfeit it. I mean, a 28-0 loss is actually might be all right.
Oh, let's not go down this route again. Oh, it reminded me of the horrible connotations of Champions Cup for doing COVID times.
Yeah.
Oh, a
One thing I
28
would
0
say
loss
is,
is better for us, you know.
yeah. Talking about basically, obviously, one team has beaten the Lions at our start of the season, Munster, and they did it quite uniquely. So sort of moving in more towards tactics. So they basically went right. Lions like counter-attacking, so we're just gonna make them have the ball the whole time, so they can't counter-attack. And say come up against our defense. I'm not sure we necessarily have the pat build to do that for a full 80, but is
Hey,
that a chance,
we can
or
give
do
the
we
other
just
team the
go?
ball. We can give the other team the ball easily. We can do that
We're
every
very
time
good
we
at
get
it,
the
yeah.
ball if we want to.
Hey, we have got the ultimate jackal threat in Tina Stabia.
Yeah, it's an interesting.
Because no one's expecting the 10 to nick the ball. Even though they've seen him do it week in, week out, he still gets away with it.
He will be very key though, Tinas, over the next 2 weeks as our resident South African now. Maybe that's why we signed him. But I mean, they're going to be hard and fast tracks down there. He's going to be used to kicking in those conditions, and that's going to be huge, the kicking game out there. So yeah, if he has 2 good games, then we put ourselves in with an opportunity, certainly. And you'd like to think him going back to South Africa, he'd have a little point to prove of never making it to the pro, not quite making it to the pro sides there. So yeah, I'd be keen to see him have 2 real stormers. Oh, bit of a South African joke there for 80 minutes.
I was hoping that wasn't deliberate.
So
No, yeah. There's the Munster tactic. There's the Ospreys tactic of basically just performing well in the last 10 minutes and just running away with it out of nowhere. Obviously in the Challenge Cup as well. So they went out there.
I don't see us doing that.
No, no. I was about to say on record that would be slightly slightly out of character for Cardiff this season. But yeah, I think I said it already. I bonus point for 4 tries is what you aim for, and then anything else is a bonus. Pardon the pun. There we go. Come on, Harley, what have you got for us?
Just no. I've expunged so many towards my wife and daughter this weekend. I sort of the wells are a bit dry. Yeah, so yeah, I think that it'd be interesting. I said season's right off. Jockey said he's going to try and go fully loaded. What that looks like with Thomas Young and I'd like to see maybe a couple of players get chances, just because there's been a lot of minutes for not a lot of players.
Might be interesting at 12. Ben Thomas and his partner welcomed a son on Monday or Sunday, I think. So happy out to them, obviously. But I wouldn't like to ask permission to go to South Africa for 2 weeks immediately after my partner had just given birth necessarily. So if he doesn't go, then I don't whether I mean Halaholo is perhaps the obvious choice, but whether they could slot a Beetham in there to give him a go, or maybe even
Beetham would be sorry, yeah.
I was just saying the other option is Grady. Could move Grady in like he did in that last Wales game and give somebody else a go at 13. But Beetham's boot in South Africa would him and Tina's kicking together would be quite fun, pinning the opposition back, looking for a couple of 50-22s and all that.
Beetham. I could Beetham. Yeah. On that I think it could be quite likely. Yeah, I don't see it. I see Chucky just turning up full Roy Keane and saying, it's not like he had the baby. Like he's not gonna. He's not gonna. That'd be rather out of character for Jockey. So I think if Ben Thomas isn't available, I'd go Beetham personally. I think like a lot of people were keen to see a bit more of him at 12. There's a lot of talk of him being able to play there. I think it's about time he's got an opportunity to start there. So I'm trying to think of the last time he started actually, full stop. Because it feels like it's been a while.
Six Nations period, probably Leinster maybe or something.
Yeah, Leinster game probably the last time he started. I think the only other time was
Well,
when
Glasgow.
Winnet picked up a
Would
bit
we
of
have started Glasgow? I don't think we took Cam Winnett to Glasgow, did we? I think we might have left him at home on that game after the Six
It
Nations.
might have been, yeah. I can't remember. I know he definitely played the Leinster game because obviously that was in the Six Nations window.
It feels a while. Maybe it isn't a while, but it does feel a long time
I
ago.
think that's just more of a sign of how ridiculously spread out fixtures are at this end of the
Yeah,
season,
that's true as well.
which is a completely different rant, which could easily be fixed if we got rid of Europe and moved the Six Nations to the summer. What? Wait, no, I'm not doing unpopular opinions anymore. Yeah, and any other points to make about this game, the summer tour, season in general?
It'd be nice. It would be nice to finish with a win at some point in one of these 3 games. Still, like having lost out on that Edinburgh one, like best chance probably the Sharks, to be honest. If especially
it would be
if
nice
the
to get
rest
the 3-peat.
Yeah. It was the Sharks who we absolutely battered there randomly a couple of years ago, was it?
Yeah, last season, 35-0.
Yeah.
And now I've got to put money. Thank you. I've got to put money in the wrapped fine jar now. Every time I mention that game, money well spent.
We got a bit of form there. They'll have eyes on other things. I seem to remember our form falling off a little bit before we got to the final in 2018. I think we went to South Africa and lost a couple of games, and then lost to Ospreys at Judgment Day when we didn't play anybody. So yeah, I think and the Sharks have been quite poor as well. I had the misfortune of watching that game against the Scarlets a couple of weeks ago when they bought everybody to Park Scarlets, and I didn't fancy them at all, to be honest, even with the quality they had on the pitch. They scored 1 or 2 nice tries, but yeah, I would definitely have fancied Cardiff on that night to beat them. So yeah, the obvious concern about going to South Africa is that we might play a bit for the first half, and then they'll go in at halftime and go, right, guys, let's just bully them and just go very direct and start battering us off the park. But
i.e. the Edinburgh tactic.
i.e. the Edinburgh tactic, yeah. I'm kind of glad I wasn't on the pod last week with Craig from Scotland, because I think I would have annoyed him by just ripping into Edinburgh about how boring I found them in that second
Do you know what?
half.
Craig would have joined in with you because he is
fine. It's
really
just,
fucked off.
I'd rather lose than win like that, if I'm totally honest. So but yeah, that's always the concern. But if they go out and give it a good go, and if they have a productive 2 or 3 weeks as a group in South Africa as well, I don't think that does any harm at all to sort of culture building and relationship building ahead of next season.
No, I think it'd be nice if Jockey sort of tries to go with the squad that sort of squad or team he's looking like for the next season. I know we can't obviously do that. Some players aren't going to be around or whatever, and you can't exactly just exclude like a Reece Carey because he's leaving next season because he's too good to leave out. But it would be nice to start seeing, if Ben Thomas Grady is going to be our 12-13, let's give him another run out, because I think the longer they play together, the more in sync they're getting. And Grady's getting better at defending the 13 channel.
I saw
each game
Gabriel,
which is quite nice.
Gabriel Hamer-Webb put on Instagram that he's going out to South Africa.
That would be. It'd be quite good to see him. And
yeah, I assume he's registered, because otherwise, why would we take him? So,
well, he's
so if
been
he
registered from the loan spell, I guess. So just
he went back to Northampton for a bit, didn't off to Northampton.
Well,
so I don't really understand what happened. Then we signed him for next season, but he's just been here the whole time anyway. So I don't really know what his state of play is. But my assumption would be if we're taking him. Maybe, I don't know. If we're taking him, he must be available.
Maybe Bath just needed the extra number in training or something for a bit.
Because we got Millard's probably injured. Adams was injured for the last game. Don't know if he's back or not. And then Lane's obviously leaving. Summerhill's sounds like he's leaving. So
Cabanga's only just come back from
yeah. Why wouldn't you then pick Hamer-Webb? I don't know.
Actually, on Summerhill, we probably should talk about that. Is the LinkedIn post, wasn't it?
Yeah, he's been shopping his highlight reel around the place and stuff. Yeah. Same as Lane.
Discussion.
So it's the same as Lane and Lewis Hughes to a degree. Yeah, like he's been a great player, but budget cuts. He's 30 now as well, which is weird to say.
Are we sure everything's all right at the club? Because we're bleeding tarty backs out of our asses, and we're struggling for sevens. What's going on?
I really like Summerhill. Just on it, I think one of a really good finisher, like underrated finisher. I really do think that always done a decent job and always worked hard, and can't really fault him. Perhaps aerial stuff could have been slightly better if you're picking holes defensively. Could have been slightly better if you're picking holes, but if he had an opportunity 1-on-1 against a fullback, I'd back him almost every time. So yeah, I can only say good things, to be honest.
I mean, I always enjoyed seeing him whenever he got a run out of fullback. I always thought they were always quite. I always thought he did really well there. Brilliant finish on the wing, but I always thought it was quite sound at the back. Which when we before we ended up bringing Liam Williams over, when Powell Amos had an injury, but him stepping up was really always done really well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of that, Dan, do you fancy? Are you going to update your little squad spreadsheet ready?
Yes, I will. I'll bring it along at some point, but I think there's only not many players who are unknown now. A couple are up front. I think we're still not sure about.
Yeah, and then maybe a few.
David Hughes, whether he signed 1 year or 2-year deal or what happens to him. Don't know about Kieran Parker as well, but yeah, I'll bring it along in a couple of weeks if things go dreadfully this weekend, and we'll just gloss over the Lions game and I'll bring it in.
Yeah, so one thing I forgot to bring up during the Rice game. Reece Littrick's first game back. How would he look? Yeah,
destroyed Llandovery, to be fair. Won 3 swim penalties off the top of my head. So yeah, he looked really good. I suspect that's have a run out before heading off to South Africa job. So would imagine he'll be benching behind Azarati this weekend.
I said he's been one of my signings of the season.
Yeah,
I think that's something but I think we'll go on to that sort of thing after Judgment Day. Do maybe a little Cardiff Central awards.
I'll dust off the tux.
God, where's my tux?
I'll put on something on my bottom half.
Hey,
there's an image.
I think on that note, thank you all for listening. Thank you very much to Dan and Carwyn for joining me in on my incoherent rambles.
Yeah, no, pleasure, mate. I was just going to mention Reece Blumberg.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
sorry,
no,
ignore that last bit.
Yeah, no,
edit the last bit out.
I politely put my hand up and then just went quietly put it down again.
Put the there's a raise hand thing on this here Zoom monarchy, that would have sorted it.
Yeah, that's one of the positives about using Zoom, isn't it? I just wanted to mention it because I fortunately had the opportunity of interviewing him last week, and I thought, he's been Cardiff's COO for a couple of years, and he said he's been part of Cardiff for I think 13 years, and I think he's left 3 or 4 times. And part of that interview, I thought he spoke really well on Cardiff this season, and not saying he deserves all the credit or saying he doesn't, but he spoke about the messages that they sent out as a club, as a company, as a region, and I thought it was spot on about the positivity that they've tried to convey with the youngsters coming through, that they knew there was a good crop of youngsters with Alex Mann, Mackenzie Martin, Evan and Cam Winnett coming through, and they knew they were going to be a positive thing to rally the fans around, rally the troops, everyone around that culture. And I think that's a really positive thing that's come from this season, is how well the messages have been coming from Cardiff throughout the season. I've really enjoyed it, really taken pride in it, to be honest. In that a Welsh region has done that so well. Hopefully he has, for the Dragons, and I know before, I know that they will be rivals, but hopefully in the future he can have a similar influence on them, because he said it's not been a positive place for several years, so hopefully it can be in the future. But yeah, I think congratulations on a brilliant 13 years of service at Cardiff, and all the best for the future for him.
Yeah. Anything you want to add, Dan?
No, covered it nicely. Top bloke, good appointment for the Dragons. Good stuff.
Yeah. When you say hope he has success, not too much success against teams in blue and black, preferably.
Oh yeah. Like
I hope
success
he
off
hates
the pitch.
Christmas.
I mean,
yeah.
I still want them to win 1 in 14, but no, as you said, the easiest way to get a region popular is for them to perform well on the pitch. But if they're not doing that, his job is to improve it off the pitch, and I hope that goes well for him in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing I forgot to do is anything you two want to plug outside of the podcast? Anything on Cardiff Rugby Life or on Sporting Wales?
Probably should be. I'm trying to think.
I mean, that's your actual livelihood. I mean,
yeah, it's actually.
I'm just waffling on Twitter.
No, I don't think I've got anything for this week. I will be doing sort of the obligatory end of season looks back at the season and trying to come up with a team of the season combined and all those sort of things. The fun things that you stick out on Twitter and get everyone to debate and shout at you for. So I'm looking forward to that. See how many people I can annoy. And then I'll have a look back at Cardiff season and try and assess it because I think it's going to be a difficult one, probably the hardest of all the four regions to describe really, in a way, because stats aren't positive, but everyone seems positive. It's quite a weird juxtaposition of two different thoughts, and trying to convey that in writing when you're perhaps not trying to what's the word, mollycoddle? No, I'm not sort of pardon?
Sugarcoat. Yes.
Yeah, not trying to sugarcoat what has been on statistically not the ideal or best season, I think, and I think that's a fair assessment. What about you, Dan? Anything stats wise we got to look forward to, or anything else?
No, I've started deep diving the new signings, so I'll whack a couple of threads up on them at some point, digging out some old Danny Southworth clips. But no, I've just plodding along, just waiting for the end of the season to come. To be honest, this is the longest season running I think I'm ever going to ever remember. We've been on the run in for 6 months already, and there's still a month to go.
Yeah. Again, it's just too long. Things need to be moved around. It's the player match week off, play 2 matches week off for Europe, whatever. I mean, I'm sure it'd be great if your team was actually competing in Europe, but let's be fair, that was never happening in the Heineken Cup group we're in. Anyway, right, so it's now time to finally say thank you to my co-hosts Dan and Carwyn.
Thanks.
Thank you all for listening. Good night.
What's that?